It's Friday, February 9th. Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here at the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get my chat box pulled up so I can see you guys. There we are. All right, you should be joining me. I mean, I know you're there, but the chat box takes a second to come up. Let me get TikTok rolling. Ukraine war update. Go live. Here we go. And then TikTok, reverse my mirror. There we go. Boom. Oops. Boom. Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, etc. Good morning, I guess, if you're in Australia or maybe Asia. Anyway, hey, Bobby on TikTok. Darlene. Anyway, how you guys doing today? Friday. Very exciting. Woo-woo. This is my daily show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern, where I talk about the latest news from the war in Ukraine. Other news kicks in too. Sometimes other national security stuff, other U.S. news. I mean, we are a year out, for less than a year from the election, so I'll be talking about that too. I'm a longtime political guy here in Washington, lawyer by trade or by education. I don't practice, but I've got a law degree and a master's in foreign service from Georgetown. I've worked at the United Nations, the World Bank, the United States Senate, The Economist. I was writing for them for a little bit, lots of different things. So I've tried to sort of pull all my background together as a also very online activist as well in politics. Thank you, Bryce. And trying to pull that all together to basically present the Ukraine news to you guys. Thank you, Marie. And hopefully give you a sense of what's going on from somebody who's an expert in foreign policy. So there you go. So welcome, everybody. Maybe we'll wait just a couple seconds more and then we'll get rolling. I just like to give TikTok and YouTube and everybody a chance to arrive. So thank you, Succeed in Kronos. Thank you for that. You got the notification. I'm shocked, right? It's very rare that TikTok gives anybody a notification, I think. Doesn't happen very often, it seems. Thank you, Ernie. All right, guys, let's get rolling. I think lately I've decided I'm going to try to get the show rolling from the beginning rather than waiting 5 minutes for folks to arrive, because I worry that the folks who get here on time then might leave, you know. So anyway, let's get rolling. Tomorrow morning, remember, Saturday morning, we have our coffee talk, which is our hangout I do for the monthly subscribers. Oops, actually, I can turn the volume up a little. I had to turn there we go. I had to turn it down for the videos. Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second, Marie. But tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S., I do a hangout on TikTok and Discord for my paid monthly subscribers. So please join us for that. Oh, Morris, I just saw your message. Yeah, I had the mic turned down for my videos. Now it's at the normal level. So join us for that on TikTok and Discord for the YouTube, Ko-fi, Twitch. Who am I forgetting? YouTube, Ko-fi, Twitch, Discord. Okay, for those 4 subscription outfits, you guys go to Discord. TikTok folks show up at TikTok. Monthly subscribers. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So Ukraine, today is day 715, unless I didn't update it. I think it's day 715 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation in Ukraine. Thank you, James. Please do keep the gifts coming, by the way. I do this for free. I do it full-time, guys, and your gifts help me pay the bills, so thank you. Thank you, Martin. So let's talk a little bit about Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin last night. Tucker Carlson is a far-right activist here in the States, propagandist. Thank you, Christian. And who is that? Martin, Christian, and... oh, Tarad. I saw somebody else. Interviewed Putin last night. The interview, in many ways, was a bit of a bust. Apparently, I mean, I watched snippet. It was a 2-hour interview. I watched snippets of it. Folks who had to watch the whole thing said it was incredibly boring. The first half hour, and I kid you not, the first half hour of the interview, Putin gave a history lesson about Russia back to the year 832 or something. And he literally told, I kid you not, half an hour, he told Tucker Carlson, give me just a minute, I want to give you literally 1 minute of history of Russia. And Carlson's like, okay, 30 minutes long. 30 minutes long, okay? He goes on, 30 minutes of this. Anyway, a number of different things he talked about. Tucker, to his credit, Tucker Carlson mentioned the Wall Street Journal journalist Evan Gershkovich, who is in prison in Russia for being a journalist. He's an American citizen. Putin just arrested him. because that's what Putin does. He kills journalists or arrests them. And Tucker, to his credit, asked about releasing Gershkovich, but then Tucker, being Tucker, of course, because he's a far-right propagandist who is basically in bed with Putin, Tucker goes, I mean, sure, he probably broke some minor law of yours. Tucker admitted that Gershkovich broke Russian law. No, he didn't. He's an American journalist. He was arrested by Putin for committing journalism. In Russia, that's a death penalty offense. They've killed journalists. They've kicked journalists out of the country. They've thrown them in jail. Anybody who criticizes the Russian government can go to jail for 15 years or worse. Thank you, Marilyn and Becky. So that was, the one time Tucker tried to be good, he still went bad. What do you do? Putin called on the U.S. I love this. Thank you, Jane. Putin called on the U.S. to negotiate, thank you, Simon, and force Ukraine to give up land. Oh, thank you, Aflac. Thank you, Ali, for the Aflac. So that the United States forces Ukraine to give up land. Thank you, Boy Mom. Let me read a little bit about this. Putin called on the U.S., this is from the New York Times, to make an agreement to cede Ukrainian territory to Russia in order to end the war. He sought to appeal directly to American conservatives, just as Republican lawmakers are holding up aid to Ukraine on Capitol Hill, echoing the talking points of politicians like Trump, who say that the United States has more pressing priorities than a war thousands of miles away. Quote, don't you have anything better to do? Putin said in response to Carlson's question about the possibility of American soldiers fighting in Ukraine. You have issues on the border, issues with migration, issues with the national debt. Okay. Hang on, where was he went on, wouldn't it be better to negotiate with Russia? That is literally a MAGA talking point. The MAGA Republicans tied aid to Ukraine to the border. And they said, we're not giving American aid is now gone. It's gone. Thank you, McCub. American aid is absolutely gone. The U.S. isn't giving a dime to Ukraine. No new money, no new weapons, nothing. Because the MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump told them to kill aid to Ukraine. Trump is, for whatever reason, Trump is always working on behalf of Putin and hates Ukraine. Oh my God, I forgot about that turkey. Thank you, James. That was very funny. That was Joey from Friends. I don't even remember if I've seen that one before. That was very funny. You surprised me on that one. I was like, whoa. So the Republicans have linked aid to fixing the border and aid to Ukraine, and saying that if Democrats don't cave and give the Republicans lots of what they want, draconian new border bill, cutting immigration from Mexico, in Latin America, then they're not going to give aid to Ukraine. So what happens? The Democrats cave. They give the Republicans an insanely conservative border bill, and Trump freaks out and says, kill it. I don't want a border bill. Trump doesn't want a border bill because Trump needs millions of illegal immigrants crossing the border in order to create mayhem in America. Thank you, Zelensky. Thank you, Mark. He's trying to, thank you, Adventures as well. Trump wants chaos on the border because he's running on chaos on the border. Thank you, Trud. If Biden were to agree with Republicans, thank you, Grumpy, and get an incredibly draconian border bill passed, which is what the Republicans agreed to, the Senate Republicans with Biden, it would show that the border might not even be an issue anymore if they can fix it, so Trump can't run on it. B, Biden is able to actually accomplish significant stuff, so maybe he's not a senile, dementia, elderly guy, right? If he's able to work out deals. And C, Biden can work with Republicans. So why do you need a Republican president to work with Congress if Biden has shown that he can reach across the aisle and work with Trump Republicans? Thank you, Life. So bottom line is Trump told the Republicans to kill the bill. They did. So the border bill is dead, and aid to Ukraine is basically dead. I mean, it's being debated in the Senate, but at this point, it's dead. Maybe things will change. I'm not very hopeful. At this point, Republicans have killed aid to Ukraine. And now Putin is therefore repeating the talking points. Shouldn't you worry about your own border? The irony, of course, is that those talking points probably started in Russia, would be my guess. Thank you, Life and Steph. Putin also said in the interview, this was another good one. Putin also said in the interview that Russia has no interest in invading Poland, Latvia, or anywhere else. Of course, he said the same thing about Crimea right before he invaded Crimea and took it. So I've told you guys this before. Russia lies. Thank you, Ukrainian, for the heart. Russia lies. They lie about everything. And I would almost go so far as to say that if the Russians are denying something, thank you, Courtney, you should really worry about whether it's coming. So if they're denying getting ready to invade the Baltic countries and Poland, prepare yourself for it. Sky News, Putin. This was an interesting tidbit from the interview. Sky News had written up this part. Putin said that President Clinton misled him over Russia's potential membership of NATO 2 decades ago. Now, I want to say, did Putin win in 1999 or so? I'm trying to remember when the actual election was when Putin first won. I think it was prime minister, wasn't he? But probably 1999 because Bill Clinton was president through 2020. So he says Clinton misled him back when Clinton was president and Putin was in Russia, in power in Russia. Putin says he asked President Clinton if Russia could join NATO when Clinton visited the Kremlin in 2000. And he claimed Clinton initially suggested he believed that would be possible before rowing back on the statement later. Come on. I mean, again, the interesting thing is back in 2000, there was actually a pie in the sky discussion back in 2000, in 1990s really, about whether Russia could join NATO, about whether Russia had so changed, was no longer the big bad dictatorship, was no longer the imperialist bad guy, was no longer the genocidal world power, hell-bent on domination, on killing people worldwide, on oppressing Europe. And again, the Russians love to blame us for this stuff too. Find me hundreds of millions of people that the Americans invaded and occupied. Find me those people. The folks we invaded and occupied, Germany and Japan, we turned into massively successful democracies and economies because we helped them and we left. The Russians took over Eastern Europe and treated it as created literally Stalinist dictatorships in Eastern Europe for 45 years. It's horrific what Russia did. In any case, the hope was in the 1990s that, thank you, Anthony, appreciate that on YouTube. The hope was in the 1990s. It was pie in the sky, but people literally were talking about whether maybe Russia could join NATO. Because we had Eastern European countries joining, we had the former Soviet bloc countries joining, the former Warsaw Pact, and the thought was, could Russia change enough that it becomes a democracy? It again no longer is sort of a genocidal dictatorship. No longer kills its own people. Keep in mind, the Russians killed like 20 or 30 million of their own people. I mean, amazing stuff. And they just did it recently, by the way, because I see one of the trolls here, Native Americans. Well, Alex, if you go back 400 or 500 years, you can find the British colonists, really not the Americans, but the British coming over and killing Native Americans. And you got to go back 500 years for that. In Russia's case, you could go right now to Ukraine and there's genocide going on. In Russia's case, you can go to the millions of Ukrainians, they starved to death. In Russia's case, you can go to the tens of millions of Russians that Stalin killed and murdered in his brutal dictatorship. So that's kind of the neat thing when you compare U.S. history to the history of the current bad guys in the world. For U.S. history, people always have to go back hundreds of years. Slavery was horrible. It also was 1865. Native Americans, horrible. That was, 400 years ago. No one's defending it. No one's saying it's good. No one's saying problems still don't exist. But when you've got to point out a problem from 400 years ago in order to defend an evil dictatorship that's murdering people today in Ukraine, then maybe it says more about you than it does about us. All I'm saying. Any case, let's go on. So a little bit more here. Any case, but it's interesting because we were literally talking about Russia joining NATO. It wasn't a crazy idea. Thank you, Disco Dave. And thank God we didn't, because could you imagine Russia with Vladimir Putin, mind you, at the helm joining NATO? Can you imagine that? Unbelievable. Oh God, I see the trolls are really out today. Now we're defending Muammar Gaddafi. That's one of my favorites, by the way. Gaddafi, who was one of the world's biggest terrorist leaders for decades, former leader of Libya until they killed him because they overthrew him. Horrible man. Gaddafi responsible for Pan Am 103. Remember Pan Am 103, that flight over Lockerbie, Scotland, that civilian airliner, Pan Am. The Libyans just blew it up. Killed everybody on board. disgust. I mean, one of the worst terrorist attacks in history. But you get the trolls, again, the pro-Russian trolls that still come out and go, what about Locker? What about Libya? Really? You want to go? And Syria, my other favorite is Syria. You really want to go there? Assad, the genocidal dictator of Syria, who of course is in cahoots with Russia. And what's his face, right? You know, goofy curly boy of Libya are the two you want to hang your hat on. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. All right, let's move on. The Telegraph. This is kind of serious. The Danish defense minister has warned Russia could go to war with NATO in as little as 3 years. Troels Lund Poulsen, who also serves as Denmark's deputy prime minister, has joined colleagues from the UK, Sweden, Romania, Germany, and others in raising the alarm about increased Russian defense spending and manufacturing. He says it cannot be ruled out that within a 3 to 5 year period, Russia will test Article 5 and NATO's solidarity. Now, Article 5 is NATO's agreement that any attack on a NATO country is an attack on every NATO country. So the idea is that if any NATO country is invaded, in principle, the rest of us have to go to war. Now, Donald Trump has already said he won't do that. Trump has already said he's going to pull out of NATO, and he is no longer going to defend any NATO countries who are attacked by Russia or anybody else. You know, this is the danger, it's the danger of MAGA, of Trump becoming president, but it's also the danger of what it does now to U.S. foreign policy, because it means that America's word no longer means anything, which is kind of an amazing thing after 250 years of American history. Kind of sick. Anyway. In any case, he says that this was not NATO's assessment in 2023. This is new information that is coming forward now. You know, thank you, Chase. This is scary stuff. I mean, I will say at this point, there is too much of a critical mass of world leaders in Europe talking about war with Russia. People are worried. I know privately, talking to some embassy officials from Europe here in the U.S., saying very worried. I mean, very getting kind of panicky about what's going to happen. And they're especially panicky if Trump becomes president, because they're afraid that Trump becoming president will literally be the, you know, not just the catalyst, but sending the message to Russia that he can invade Europe. Thank you, Fred. I'm not even sure what to say, because clearly this is more a European thing. I mean, Americans are worried. Europeans are panicking. Now, I suspect it's because Europe's there, right? I mean, we're not there. Europe is. I mean, we know in the end, Russia isn't touching our country. If Russia touches our country, we'll nuke them. If you're a European country, that's not so clear what's happening. You know, for the Brits, they've got nukes and they're also far to the west. If you're Poland, you know, where's my little map? Since we do have the maps today, I've got Ava's beautiful map she made me. Here's Russia, right? Right on Russia's border, you've got, well, close to Russia's border, Poland. They're next to Russia's ally, Belarus. You've got Lithuania. Latvia shares a border with Russia. Estonia, border with Russia. Finland, border with Russia, right? I mean, you get to the UK, you're all the way over here. You're starting to get a lot safer when you're in the UK. There is too much chatter right now about war with Russia, and I'm not saying that in a critical way. I'm saying that in a worrisome way. The Europeans who know better, the European experts who know better, are getting increasingly worried that we are more likely than we were before going to war with Russia. And I think what's most interesting about that is the analysis is not that we are more likely to have a world war with Russia because we stopped them in Ukraine or tried. The concern is we are more likely to go to war with Russia because we didn't stop them in Ukraine. That's the analysis. The analysis, and this is where, again, I've criticized Biden for this. The problem is, it's not that, oh, we escalated in Ukraine and pissed off the Russians. It's we didn't do enough in Ukraine. The Russians are now winning because the MAGA Republicans pulled all of American support. The Russians are now turning the table and starting to win the war. It was stalemated, but now the Republicans have basically tilted things in favor of Putin, who's their ally on this. And we are now more likely facing a world war. I'm not saying one's going to happen, but we are facing a more likely possibility of a world war in Europe with Russia because of what Trump did and because of what the Republicans did and because of what Biden did. I mean, Trump and the Republicans, because they cut off all aid to Ukraine from America, but Biden, Because from the beginning, he was afraid of angering Putin, and he was afraid of escalating. So Biden gave a lot of aid to Ukraine, but he made sure he never gave Ukraine enough aid. He always made sure that he gave Ukraine just enough aid to break even, but not enough aid to get all their land back, because if they got their land back, Putin would get angry, and he didn't want that to happen. So everyone's to blame for different reasons. Biden helped, but not enough, because he was afraid, and the Republicans, MAGA Republicans, were simply in Putin's pocket. And they did what they promised. They came through, and now they're helping Putin win the war, which is really sick, because they're literally in league with one of America's enemies. It's just sickening. So let me get a little more here. Financial Times. Not to be all negative Nancy today, but there's a lot of not happy news today. Financial Times did another updated story on the situation with artillery, with ammunition in Ukraine after the Republicans cut off American aid. Let me talk about that. And please do keep the gifts coming. I know this is sad stuff. Keep the gifts coming, though. Still got to pay the bills. So I appreciate your guys' help. Financial Times. Ukraine faces, thank you, SV. Ukraine faces a critical gap in Western artillery ammunition needed to withstand Russian attacks. Thank you, Flower Lady. Officials have warned as U.S. assistance runs out and Europe fails to hit its own targets for increasing arms production. Kyiv has already begun, this is from the Financial Times, Kyiv has already been struggling to hold back Russia's troops at a 1,500-kilometer active front line. 1,500 kilometers is like 1,000 miles, so in a 1,000-mile front, between the Russian, in other words, a 1,000-mile line that the Russians and the Ukrainians are facing each other on, with Ukrainian forces rationing stockpiles and firing only about a third of the number of rounds they need each day to maintain their position. So the Ukrainians are only firing a third of the number of artillery shells they need to fire in order to even hold their position. They need 3 times what they've got currently in order to hold their position, and they don't have it. Thank you, Lamb Chop. Quote, this is really as grave as we have been portraying it, a U.S. defense official said, noting that the U.S. has run out of money to fund new weapons contracts for Ukraine or funds that would allow the Pentagon to take inventory from its stockpiles and replenish those stocks. Quote, my take is that this is a very grim scenario, the defense official said, adding that the Pentagon was particularly concerned about maintaining Ukrainian air defense systems and ammunition systems. Now, think about that. And this makes sense. The concern isn't just Ukraine getting enough artillery shells, because we know that's a big deal. But what has the U.S., and Europe too, but the U.S. especially, what's been one of the biggest, most beneficial things the U.S. has given Ukraine? Patriot missiles, right? Helping protect Kyiv and other key places. Without the Patriot missiles, right, they've got the system, but then they need the actual missiles. And the missiles are, I think they were 2 or 3 million each missile. You need more missiles to keep that thing operating. Without ongoing U.S. assistance, Ukraine's going to run out of the missiles. And then what's going to happen? Russia is going to destroy Kyiv, and they're going to destroy other places. Anyway, wait, a little more here. It's a desperate situation on the front lines for the Ukrainians, far worse than they are letting on, said a senior NATO diplomat. Ukraine's defense minister said that the Russians have 3-to-1 artillery shells to Ukraine. Ukraine is firing 2,000 shells a day. They need to be firing 6,000 a day. Very bad. Ukraine today said that there were no prisoners of war on that plane. Remember, we talked about this. Russia claimed about a week and a half ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago now, that the Ukrainians shot down a Russian military plane that the Russians claim did not have missiles, which it always has had in the past, but had Ukrainian prisoners of war. And all of us were saying, well, maybe, maybe not. A, Russia lies about everything. Thank you, Sherry. B, Russia has literally murdered Ukrainian prisoners of war in the past, blown them up. In eastern Ukraine, they blew up members of the Azov battalion, 50 prisoners of war, because they wanted to make it look like Ukraine did it. So the Russians literally bombed the building they were in and killed them all. And the UN investigated it and kind of confirmed the whole thing. So you're dealing with A, did this even happen? Thank you, Hot Switch. B, were there even prisoners of war in the plane? C, if there were, or even if there weren't, did the Ukrainians shoot it down, or did the Russians blow it up? The Russians blew up the prisoners of war in eastern Ukraine on purpose. The Russians blew up Yevgeny Prigozhin's plane. Remember the guy who tried to do the coup attempt, who ran the Wagner Group? The Russians blew up his plane on him. We have no way of knowing if this plane had prisoners of war on it, who did it, who blew it up. Well, the latest is the Ukrainians are now coming out and saying there were no prisoners of war on that plane. Now, I had raised the issue yesterday. We were all talking about this. If Ukraine blew up and killed 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war on a Russian plane, and this was 2 weeks ago, guys, there would be lots of videos of body parts everywhere. The Russians would be the first people, and they would tell the UN, the Red Cross, they'd tell everybody. They'd make sure it wasn't just Russians. They'd say, Ukrainian film crew will give you free, we're not going to hurt you. Come and film the entire thing, right? The Russians would love to show video of 65 dead Ukrainian troops, dead Ukrainian heroes that Vladimir Zelensky killed. You've seen none of that. We haven't even seen video. Think about this. We haven't even seen like fake propaganda video from them. At the very least, they would take their own pictures, right? I mean, you would want to freak out the Ukrainians. Again, think from a Russian mindset, right? You would want to freak them out. You want them to see images of their dead loved ones, right? You want the public to think Zelensky killed these people. Not a thing. Thank you, Scott. Zero from the Russians on this. I really think at this point that the most likely answer or explanation is, one, there were no prisoners of war on the plane, and two, if there were, Russia blew the plane up. Actually, whether there were or were not, Russia blew the plane up. Because Russia doesn't want any observers going. They don't want anybody looking at the wreckage and going, wait a minute, that looks like a bomb, right? That doesn't look like a Patriot missile. But at this point, 2 weeks into it, if there were dead bodies, the Russians would be showing it to us as a propaganda move, and they're not doing it. They're not doing it. And by the way, mods, knock anybody else out who's bringing up extraneous issues, because if we're talking about other topics, I don't mind it. But this is something that the trolls have been doing all over TikTok as well, is they try to hijack every discussion, and it annoys me after a while. We basically got like the pro-Palestinian folks who think it's okay to go hijack every discussion. It's not. If we're talking about Israel and Palestine, I don't mind you guys commenting, but trying to steal the conversation when they're in the middle of talking about genocide in Ukraine, not cool. So please don't do that. Yeah, I mean, just don't ban them, but mute them if they start doing that stuff. Anyway. All right, a little bit more. Oh, this was good, at least. Ukrainian drones attacked the Ilsky oil refinery in Russia's southern Krasnodar region. I sound like I'm drunk. Krasnodar region, causing a large fire at the site in an operation conducted by the Ukrainian military intelligence. The source said Ukrainian drones also attacked Russia's nearby Afipsky oil refinery. Norway, God bless Norway, announced today, that it had asked the parliament to deliver an additional 10 NASAMS air defense missile systems to Ukraine. Finland approved a military aid package for Ukraine worth over $200 million. This brings total military aid from Finland to Ukraine to 1.8 billion with a B euros, which is equivalent to almost $2 billion. And again, that's a big deal, right? The U.S. has given a lot more, but the U.S. is one of the biggest economies in the world. Actually, who's got the biggest? I forget. Where do we rank? Are we the biggest anymore? I always forget. Is India ahead of us? Alexa, who's got the biggest economy in the world?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the United States is the world's largest economy with a GDP of approximately $20.5
Okay, still is us.
China is second with $13, $407 trillion.
Okay. So they're saying China's second. Okay, we are still number one. Okay, so China's second, right? I mean, we're the largest economy in the world. I thought India was second, not China, but they're claiming China, but who knows? The point is we're the largest economy in the world. It's like being the richest man in the world. If you're the richest man in the world, you're able to give more to help poor people than the blue-collar factory worker can give to help poor people. He may help too, but he's not going to give as much as the richest guy. I mean, if the richest guy in the world were generous, he's not going to give as much. Kind of the same thing. The U.S. has the largest economy in the world. If we can afford to give more, so you can't really do apples and oranges saying, well, Finland's only given $2 billion. Finland is a much smaller. Actually, Alexa, turn the volume up. Alexa, what is the GDP of Finland?
In 2022, the gross domestic product, GDP of Finland was $282.9 billion. Finland is the 43rd.
Okay, Alexa, stop.
in the world based on
So
nominal GDP.
Alexa, stop. I always call her data. It's like data, that's enough. 280 billion. I heard billion, not million. I heard 282 billion. And the U.S. economy is what, 25 trillion? So that would be 0.2. Oh, who am I? Oh, Carne, you don't want to go there. You really don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. You're going to be embarrassed. Anybody who wants to know who I am, go to my profile on TikTok, click the link. You'll see my link tree. Not my link tree. You'll see my LinkedIn, and you can read it and weep. So feel free to go check it out. Anyway, yeah, so U.S. is so much bigger. U.S. is so much bigger. And mods, you can kill the rest of the trolls asking that stuff, obviously. Oh, hi, Finland. Hi, Sibylla? Sibylla, maybe? That's what I'm going to go with. Well, welcome, new NATO member. Welcome, new NATO member. And Simon Pierre Parent from Quebec. Salut, Simon. Or Simon. I don't know. You say Simon? Simon Pierre. I'm not sure how the Canadians do it. All right, guys. Thank you, Napoleon, for that. A little bit more. This was an interesting story. So, you may remember Morphins. Hello, Morphins. You may remember how the Russians were putting out some talking points through Fox News and Tucker Carlson, of course, through their mouthpieces, their MAGA mouthpieces here in the U.S. The Russians were putting out talking points that Ukraine was anti-Christian. Now, part of this, thank you, Anastasia, part of this was meant to be a slam of Zelensky for being, it was meant to be an anti-Semitic attack on Zelensky for being Jewish. Okay, that was part of it. Part of it is trying to give the MAGA crowd a reason to hate Ukraine. Part of it is an ongoing Russian talking point, that the Russians are the great defenders of Christianity and the West isn't, and the West has gay people and trans people and all those pronouns, and whereas Russia is the great Christian country. And Republicans, MAGA Republicans, thank you, Doggy Dave, MAGA Republicans have rallied to that point over the last 10 years. A lot of even before Trump, the conservative, or not even conservative, I don't know what they are anymore, because they're not really far right because they embrace America's enemies like Russia, but whatever they are, the pre-MAGA Republicans were very big on this notion of, oh, Putin's such a good Christian. Putin's not a good Christian. I mean, he's not a good Christian if you look just on its face, judging what makes you a good Christian. You know, murdering your fellow man, not a good Christian. Running a dictatorship, generally not a good Christian. But what was interesting is the treatment of religions overall. Pedro, hi Pedro, is the treatment of Christians overall. And let me read you this. This is from Institute for the Study of War. Who is that? Thank you, Jonathan. Russian occupation authorities in Ukraine are persecuting Christians, Roman Catholics, Presbyterians, Methodists, Lutherans, the Ukrainian Reformed Orthodox Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, and more. More from ISW. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Russian soldiers or occupation authorities have reportedly committed at least 76 acts of religious persecution in Russia. Russian authorities have closed, nationalized, or forcefully converted at least 26 places of worship to the Kremlin-controlled Russian Orthodox Church. So they've taken other churches, closed them, and turned them into Russian churches. Just closed the other religions. Hang on a second here. The Russians have killed or seized at least 29 clergy or religious leaders. So they've killed or arrested 29 religious leaders, looted, desecrated, or deliberately destroyed at least 13 places of worship in occupied Ukraine. These cases of religious repression are not likely isolated incidents, but rather part of a deliberate campaign to systematically eradicate undesirable religious organizations in Ukraine and promote the Russian church. I mean, it reads like Ukraine. It reads like Ukraine. It reads like genocide. This is why I sort of harp on people when they use the word, I'm also a lawyer, so words, and frankly, a writer, and words have always mattered to me. You don't just throw words around. You don't just accuse people of genocide because you don't like them or a lot of people are dead. That's not genocide. Genocide is when you systematically try to wipe out an entire people, when you systematically try to wipe out an entire country. It is not killing 20,000 people out of 2 million people because you don't care if they die. That's a war crime, potentially, but it's not genocide. Thank you, Martin. Genocide is when you go in there and you literally say, we are going to wipe out every vestige of your church. Every church is going to be destroyed because religion is only going to be our religion. That potentially gets you to genocide. That potentially gets you to genocide. That's another point, by the way, Carla. When it comes to legal analyses, it's difficult to reach conclusions without going to court because you got to prove it. And proving stuff like this is not easy. So typically you will hear lawyers say potentially for a lot of stuff because it's a little too easy to say stuff is absolute. It just is. It's cheap, I think. It's intellectually a little cheap to say, oh, we all know it's genocide. No, we don't. Even with this, we'd have to prove it's genocide with the Russia stuff. No, I hear what you're saying, but that's why I'm saying potentially. We don't know what would actually be proven. In any case, so the Russians, and the final point on the Russians and Christianity, which always amazes me. I saw that, Dom, thank you. I did see it. I laughed when I was doing my reading of this. The Russians are like the least religious people out there. The Russians go to church a lot less than the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians way more religious. Americans go to church way more than Europeans and Russians do. I mean, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the church going in America, we are so much more Christian than the Russians are. But it just kind of cracks me up when people like the Russians like to pretend this whole thing of, how religious they are. They're not religious at all. Finally, Russia is a dictatorship watch. A 23-year-old woman has been detained. Listen to this story. Again, classic Russia here. A 23-year-old woman has been detained on suspicion of rehabilitating Nazism. That's what they call anybody who criticizes the government. After she filmed a video mocking a monument to the Battle of Stalingrad, a famous battle in World War II. The unnamed woman could be imprisoned for 5 years if convicted. During the video, the Russian woman stood below the Motherland Calls, a statue of a woman brandishing a sword and mimicked touching the figure's breasts while laughing. Okay, her crime is going to a World War II monument, and it's a picture of, woman, big boobs, holding a sword, and she went like this to the woman, to the statue, and they took a picture. She is potentially facing 5 years in prison because of this. And the charge is rehabilitating Nazism, okay? I mean, again, this is what Russia is. And I feel like I've got to keep, I think it's important to keep reminding people because, and again, you guys tend to get it. The MAGA crowd does not, but that's because they were told not to get it. But people are trying to, and Tucker Carlson certainly, are trying to present this image of Russia as they're just like us. Can't we all just get along? They're not just like us. I would love us to keep getting along, but they're not just like us. They're a dictatorship. This is what dictatorships do. You may not like things in our country. I got news for you. You're not going to jail for protesting the war, especially forget protesting the war. If you did this, people would be pissed. Fox News would be all over you. They would cancel you, yes, right? But no one's throwing you in jail because you went like this to a statue. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Actually, it would be illegal in our country. There literally would be a First Amendment fight, and you would win if the government tried to do that to you. In Russia, Oh, here was the quote. Here was the quote from Russia's investigative committee. Listen to this. The woman has carried out immoral and cynical actions, insulting the symbol of the steadfastness of the Soviet people during the Great Patriotic War. I mean, that statement just reeks of dictatorship. Any case, all right. That is it for the news today. Let's hang and do our usual. Thank you, Annie. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. I do this for free. I do it full time. So your gifts help me pay the bills and keep going. Thank you, Joe. But let's talk. So what were we talking about? This stuff. Tucker Carlson, USAID, Critter, World War III. I mean, it's a lot of not good news today, I must admit. So, but what do? You gotta sort of report the news as it comes. Sometimes it's not going to be. That was not a shot. That was espresso. That was a shot and a beauty. I actually looked these up. It's a very pretty little Italian espresso cup, but from a little town in Italy. I guess it's a very famous little town, but they're very pretty little cups. Anyway, Terry? Oh God, there's no way. How could I even? They're TikTok, they're YouTube ads. I mean, how would I even, they're YouTube ads. There's no way to even, in a million years, I wouldn't be able to go, you know what I mean? It's YouTube. It's like, no, Terry was asking if there was a way for me to adjust the YouTube ads, and there's like no way. Actually, YouTube, that's surprising, because actually I've got the YouTube setting at conservative now. So it's supposed to put only a few number of ads. Having said that, guys, this is literally my job. I literally do this full time. The news throughout the day, and then this stuff for you guys. I've got to make money or I can't do it. This is my job. It's like the work you do 9 to 5. This is what I do instead. So I realize you don't like the ads, but like quite literally, channels do endorsements. Who's going to do an endorsement? I mean, I'm happy to. If some bank wants to hire me and give me money, go for it. But I don't know where that's coming from. There shouldn't be any ads on YouTube. I mean, not any, but I've got YouTube set to conservative. I'm surprised if it's every 2 minutes. That would be weird. I'm literally looking at it right now. Ads on. Let YouTube decide. Choose ad frequency. Conservative. There you go. Yeah. It should not be showing ads I don't even believe it's showing ads every 2 minutes. There's no way. But in any case, not much we can do about it, guys. Again, this is the price of doing business. No, I mean, that's all you can do. This is also the thing. And when I get annoyed, is there an Affleck? Did I miss it? Thank you, Harry, for the bear. Thank you, Adat, for the rose. Jetta Mom, did I miss an Affleck? Oh, Critter. Thank you, Critter. Chazak for the orange. Sorry, we were talking about other stuff. Cheryl had an Affleck too. I'm sorry, guys. Critter. All right. Joe, I think I'm up to date now. T-Bone. Okay, I hope I'm up to date. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, this is something I must admit too. Like, thank you, Martin, for the Affleck. I get annoyed when I go to newspaper pages and they're behind a paywall. The problem is, I don't like it, but how else are they going to make money? It's not like they're charities. You know what I mean? And I think that's something like all of us need to get our heads around, that the internet became, other than, there weren't a lot of ways to make money on the internet at the beginning. And even now, it keeps changing. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Harry. I had one of the top political blogs in the United States back in the 2000s. Initially, not much money. Then we were able to do ads, made a ton of money. Thank you, Harry and Aaron and Martin. Then the economic crisis of like 2009 or whatever came, killed the advertising. 3/4 of my money was gone. Then started to build it up again. Then, who was it? Facebook killed my advertising, because Facebook played some games in the I'm trying to remember if it was 2011, 12, or 13. Facebook decided it was going to just kill any links to outside sites that were doing well. My blog used to do great people on Facebook love to recommend my blog. They did this to Upworthy, a number of other sites, some gay sites, new gay civil rights movement, if you follow the gay stuff. And they just killed us. They changed the algorithm on Facebook. Traffic, boom, half my money gone overnight. So this is the hard part when you're doing internet stuff. Trying to monetize it is impossible, because you can, but it's just, I was doing really well with whatchamacallit. What's it called? Patreon. Patreon screwed me. We were doing great on Patreon. I was sending everybody to Patreon, and Patreon screwed me because Patreon doesn't like to support Ukraine. So they threatened me. I had to pull my link to Patreon. So I'm allowed to tell you to go to Patreon and you can sign up and donate. But I can't link Patreon anymore to my Discord. I link all the other services to my Discord. TikTok I can't, because TikTok's broken. But TikTok, at least I can do this show on the weekends with you guys. But Patreon, thank you, come out. Patreon was probably the most successful thing I had out there. Every show I would promote Patreon, and I get 1 or 2 of you to sign up on Patreon. Every freaking show I get 1 or 2 of you. They told me to pull the plug, and now nothing. And it dropped. It is just, I don't mean to whine about it, but it is incredibly difficult to make money online. I think for some people that are huge, they can do it, but it's not easy. It's not easy. Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. Any case, I'm doing it anyway. What do you do? You know what I mean? But that's why I mentioned the gifts, but that's also why I say on the ad front, I even put the ads conservative, even though it's probably going to cost me a couple $100 a month, because I didn't want to annoy you guys. But at some point, Twitch just wasn't, I was doing Twitch, but the problem with Twitch was there was a quality problem with YouTube and everything else. What I do for the show is I broadcast on TikTok with you guys on my iPad, and then I was doing all the other services on my laptop, which is right here. You're the laptop people over there. The problem is my Apple laptop, even though it's not very old, was streaming at a very bad quality. And what I finally realized a month ago, because I was thinking it was just my internet, but it wasn't my internet speed. My internet speed's pretty good. It was my camera. For whatever reason, my camera and the service I was using to stream, I was using StreamYard, a service online, and my camera on my computer, the combination made a horrible, horrible resolution. Thank you, Lamb Chop. So what I did was I now stream on my laptop using a Logitech camera I bought during COVID that I don't love, but it's good enough. I don't like it only because you guys can see where the color is off and stuff, and it's a little too bright on my face. It's impossible to, it's not Logitech. It's a very expensive camera, like a $140 camera, and it's not the best camera, but what do you do what you can. And I'm using OBS, which is a software that was a little confusing, but I finally figured it out. But using OBS, I can't stream to multiple sites. I can only stream to one, and I had to pick YouTube. So I've got TikTok because you're on iPad, and on my computer, I can only stream to YouTube now. But it means no more Twitch, no more of the other guys. So, see you, Pedro. Oh, that's right. You guys are, is it Finland is it Finland having the elections? I'm trying to remember where you are, Pedro. Is it Finland, I think, having the elections this weekend? Am I right? Jedi, the only problem, we should talk about this at some point. The concern I had about streaming to multiple services, when I was testing OBS like a year ago, and we tried streaming, I don't want to get too geeky for folks who aren't into this, but Finland has presidential elections on Sunday. Okay, that's what I thought. The problem I had was I thought with OBS, when you multi-stream, you're multi-streaming equal bandwidth. So in other words, rather than one chunk of bandwidth, you've now got 5 chunks of bandwidth going out there, 5 times as much. At least on my end, it was not good. It was not good. If there's a, I'm even going to take a screen cap so we can look into this later. But it was not, it was not easy. I don't mind streaming to multiples, but it was not easy at all. And as I said, it was a bandwidth issue for whatever reason. We sensed that we were literally sending equal amount of bandwidth out, which was not good. My direct connection for the internet, I have used before. Sometimes it screws up. My Wi-Fi is really good. I mean, the problem is my direct connection I've got, but it kept screwing up with my laptop. For some reason, my Apple laptop kept dropping it and not recognizing it. My Wi-Fi now is like 400 download and 70 upload. I mean, the upload's amazing. Aravosis Swift. Who's Swift? I'm trying to remember who Swift is. Who's Swift? I'm even going to look right now just to tell you, speed test. But they changed my upload speeds and they're great now. But, Taylor Swift. Oh, I like that one. Yes. I like Taylor. Aravosis Swift. I'm like, which Swift? I'm just going to tell you really quick. But yeah, no, my speeds are good now. But what I found was I had to use OBS and my camera because everything else was degrading the quality too much. Yeah. I mean, show you guys right now. I mean, that's my speed. It's not bad. It used to be crappy before. 474 and 75. I mean, my speed sucked before. That for America, that's really good. I mean, mine was 10 upload before. You know? Oh, how much do I have to pay for that? $250 a month for that. Who was that with the gift? Thank you, Claire. $250 a month. I get no movie services. That's just the internet and my TV. It's Xfinity, of course. My internet and my TV. That's it. $250 a month. No cell phone. No movies. It would be I guess it's 500, sure, because the download is almost 500. Yeah. Thank you, Comet, for the heart. I was telling because Callum was asking me about this, and I told him. He was like, "What?" I said, "Yep, 250." Digital antenna? I don't remember what that is, Deb. What digital antenna? No, it is. Well, I'm in DC, which doesn't help. But honestly, my mom's paying the same in Chicago. My mom in Chicago is paying $250, $260 she's paying. And again, no movie channels. Her internet, and again, on her internet, I've kept to have CNN. They've made CNN part of their premier tier. So now CNN is your most expensive internet without getting movies because they've got different levels. You've got to get CNN because they know what they're doing. So in order to get CNN, which I have to have, no, I'm going to have to cut the cord. Correct. I'm going to have to cut the cord. I see a number of others. Well, I'm curious. The ones of you who are paying $230 like oatmeal, are you in the U.S. though? I'm going to guess probably. I had Starlink before. Dom says, did we have to let Tucker come back? Oh, Tucker Carlson. Did we have to let Tucker come back? Yes. Couldn't we have slapped some anti-Russian stickers on his luggage while loading the plane? Yes. Interestingly enough, the European Union is looking at possibly going after him for sanctions. I don't quite know how it works with the European Union. I don't know if it's because he's working as a propagandist or what it is, but they're looking at going after him. The problem is in the U.S., our free speech rights are much more enshrined in the Constitution and the law than they are in Europe. So it's much harder for us to do stuff so that there's nothing we could do to go after him. No. I mean, he's allowed to be a traitor, basically, under U.S. law. I mean, a traitor who isn't a traitor, right? He's not literally arming the enemy, even though he's arming them verbally, Others have gone and interviewed Putin in the past, sure, but they haven't been traitors. I mean, Megyn Kelly went, and Megyn Kelly, I don't like her, but she at least is a quasi-journalist. Well, she is a journalist. She's a journalist with a heavy bias. I mean, super bias, but she's at least a journalist. Barbara Walters interviewed Putin 20 years ago. Barbara Walters is a barracuda. Barbara Walters will just slay you. I don't even know if she's still alive anymore. Boy, she would just take people and, But generally speaking, a lot of people have interviewed Putin in the past. Putin has refused interviews in the last many years from any Western media. The problem isn't interviewing Putin. The problem is it's not everybody having a bias. That's not the problem. Everybody has a bias. Everybody doesn't say, Ukraine's evil, Russia's good, the world doesn't understand Vladimir Putin, he's a good man, and I'm going to interview him and prove to you why he's a good man, why the Russians are good, why the Americans are bad, why the Ukrainians deserve what they're getting. And as he said, as Tucker said a while back on his TV show, why Democrats in America are even worse than Putin. Putin's better than Democrats. You should like Putin more than you like Democrats. That is a far-right fascist activist. That is not a journalist. The problem is not anyone interviewing Putin. The problem is Tucker Carlson, a partisan far-right activist who is pro-Russia and pro-genocide interviewing Putin. That's the problem. So, anywho, but slapping the stuff on his luggage is funny. That's very funny. Very funny. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you for that. What else we got? The internet stuff again. I pay $50 a month for internet. They give 12 months free. Well, the other thing is, in Europe, my God. Again, Americans need to go to Europe more. Because if you went to Europe, I think you'd be very, Europe, right? We always like to say. Europe, where you get 6 weeks vacation. Pretty much everybody I knew in France, I think it's the minimum. They get like 6 weeks or something crazy. There's like young people. When I started my job, I think I had 2 weeks vacation and I didn't get any for 6 months. The first 6 months I was on probation, my first job. We don't get stuff like that. France. We're talking 15 years ago in France. I got a cell phone. I had my iPhone, a little less than 15, maybe 15, my iPhone, and would get a French SIM card because I'd go to France for 4 to 6 weeks in the summer and house sit for friends there, and I would work from there. And I got a SIM card for my phone, a French SIM card that was so cheap I kept it for the year because that way I could keep my phone number in France. I was paying... Oh God. I remember my total was $25. I was paying $20 a month for my cell phone service in France. I've not been to Finland. I'd love to go though. $20 a month for my cell phone service in France. It was unlimited calls. Mind you guys, this was 15 years ago when we were paying 10 cents a text message. Unlimited calls, unlimited texting, Free calls to North America, so I could call the US for free, because this is before you could do Wi-Fi as well. I mean, insane, absolutely insane. I'm trying to remember if this was smartphone or actually, eventually it was smartphone, yes, because I eventually got it for my iPhone too. $20 a month for my phone plan. This was 15 years ago. My friends in Paris were paying $30 a month for their phone, internet, cable TV. $30 a month. We have no idea. Thanks, Incognito. We have no idea what it's like. Yeah, see, Jan Thomas says I pay $30 a month in Sweden, which is ironic because Sweden is so insanely expensive compared to America. I mean, for food and stuff, but for internet, it's nothing. No, we have a cartel here. We have a monopoly here. It's obscene. And the thing is, they all charge the same price because it's all one big monopoly. It's really drives me crazy. No, I mean, I am going to cut the cord eventually when I get comfortable with it. But I mean, $250 a month for my freaking cable internet, and I don't even get movie channels, guys. I get nothing special. You know? So ridiculous. Well, yeah, it doesn't include the taxes. Well, mine's like $254 with taxes and fees. But yeah, it's obscene. It's actually obscene. Yeah. You know? Anyway, it's very upsetting. Yep. Sally says, I have unlimited calls and data for £12 a month. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And I assume you're in the UK if it's pounds. Yeah. Amazing. Gunther, my friends in Paris were paying the same thing you pay here in DC. That's the thing. They're paying the same for their apartment I'm paying here. It wasn't any more expensive. Maybe where you live, yes. But for those of us in DC, thanks. Hey, Ash, have a good night. For those of us in DC, we're paying the same rent people pay in Paris. No, it was amazing back then. I mean, the connection, everything was good. I don't even know what the connection was. It was fabulous because I used to work there. I would go for 6 weeks with my computer and do my blogging, and it was internet. No problem. You know? Yeah, no, I'm going to have to finally cancel and just the internet portion alone will probably be $100 a month, which is ridiculous, but who knows, but we'll see. But I'm thinking or 60, 70, whatever it is, I'll buy YouTube TV or whatever it's called and have that be it, you know? You're in Michigan, you pay $80 a month for fiber gig speed. That's pretty good. Now, are you getting TV with that as well? Or just internet incognito in Michigan? Seven seconds to download. The other thing is Comcast has also gotten nasty where they no longer give you deals. They've pretty much gotten rid of the deals, which I think is just obnoxious as hell. Hang on, I'm trying to get what is this doing? Hello. There we go. They've just gotten rid of, like, you used to be able to call and get deals and stuff. Not anymore. You know? T-Mobile for internet only. That's interesting. I'd consider. I just want to make sure that it's a good, like, finally my connection is good. Literally, they just they just updated it last month. I was getting 5 or 10 megabit per second upload speeds. That was the max for years. I had 5 for years was the max you could get. And then it went to 10. And finally last month it got to 70. So now it's actually good. And it's helped, but the quality is still not so great on YouTube. You know? Thank you, Tom. I mean, you guys can tell on YouTube, like, it's good, but it's not great. And I am streaming with 70 megabit internet. You know? I don't know what that is, Lamar. What's that new movie? I don't know what that is. It was an amazing upgrade. Yeah. No, it really was an amazing upgrade. I mean, 70 is real, but nothing on the F-16s. Nope. No, I still need to figure out, but again, it's so hard to figure this stuff out, like with doing the show, because as I said, I had to test forever to realize my computer camera was slower than my Logitech camera from the outside, but my Logitech camera doesn't look as good, but what do you do in terms of the quality? Then if I used this website to stream, the quality was worse than if I stream on OBS. And OBS, I think, was better, by the way, than if I stream via YouTube. I even tested on YouTube directly, going to YouTube's website and streaming using YouTube's web. I thought, hey, why don't I just go to YouTube Studio or whatever it's called and stream from YouTube's website to YouTube. That's got to be the best quality. It was worse quality than OBS. I mean, the internet has always been a puzzle. I mean, I've been doing this stuff since 1995, and it's like when you call the cable company with problems and they go, it's the phone company. No, it's the cable company. No, it's your box. No, it's your Wi-Fi router. No, it's your, they always come up with an excuse. It's the same way doing tech stuff. I find like it's always so, but literally using YouTube's own YouTube Studio was a less quality feed than using OBS to stream. I mean, I'm like, ugh. So anyway, this is good enough, but it should be much better at the speeds I'm getting. Internet is a business expense for me. Oh yeah, absolutely, of course, obviously, yeah. So no, it is. Tech is about isolating each bug. What bothers me though is, like in this case, it's hard figuring out what the bug is. Because one issue too, like, is Comcast throttling me? I don't know, right? Does Comcast just know that OBS is some software for streaming, basically. But does Comcast know that I'm streaming video to YouTube and therefore they're saying, we don't want it going that high of quality, right? Maybe. I could try VPN. I worry that VPN would be even worse quality, to be honest. Pakistan election? I am not up on the Pakistan election. That's for sure. I mean, I think I've had a VPN before. I mean, the neighbors could be using up the bandwidth. It's hard to know, but I test it during the day too. It's just always, I know. I read the other day about Pakistan, but I'm not up on it. I've got to read up and see what the latest is. Yeah. Anyway, I will not watch the Super Bowl. No, I'm not a Super Bowl guy. I mean, the commercials are fun. The Taylor stuff makes me laugh. The Taylor Bush stuff makes me laugh, but otherwise, I'm not a sports guy, so I will not be watching the Super Bowl. Starlink, Starlink. I think Starlink. What is it, guys? Isn't it the same everywhere? Isn't Starlink $70 a month or something? Now you have to have access to the satellite, which I don't know which way that goes. That's an interesting question. Latency. I can pull it up and see if it's on here. I never quite thought of Starlink. That is kind of funny. Does something on there tell you what you asked me about latency or not? Or yes or no for the latency question. I don't know. I always forget. Is latency is like a lag, isn't it? I would imagine. Or what? Oh, it's a ping. Yep. So what's the... Oh, ping MS 23? What does that mean? 23. But what is that? Good, bad? Don't show that? Okay. Some are saying okay, some are saying bad. I can try it one more time just for fun. Let's see. Ukraine is finished if Putin, Trump, and MAGA get their way, but the Republicans in Congress are currently trying to help Russia win the war. So yeah, it's finished if the Russians, if the Republicans give them their way. Now I'm getting 21 for my ping. Yeah. Okay, but 23 is good. Okay, you're all kind of all over the place. All right. No, I mean the connection's great. So. Oh, good night, blah, blah. I know everyone's checking their internet speed now just for fun. I mean, who knows how many Ukrainians have died? I mean, more Russian troops than Ukrainians have died. We know that. But, how many? I live in Washington, D.C. Does X pay something to Tucker? Probably. Ukraine has had to cut back on the amount of artillery shells they're firing because it's other ammunition too, I believe, but artillery because they're not getting any more. The U.S. is giving them nothing. Europe is trying to fill the gap, but that could take a year, and it's not clear that Europe can fill the gap. But, so. Oh, that's interesting. Starlink is expensive to buy the equipment, around $500 to $600. But then isn't it like $75 a month, didn't we say, or something for Starlink? The problem is, can you use Starlink like in an apartment, or does the box have to be outside or something, or how does that work? I'm assuming the box has to be outside. And what's my internet speed? 43? Yeah, that's not good. 43 what? Well, either way isn't very good. Well, download's okay. 140, not small. Elon Musk's customer support? I don't know. What do you mean? Well, that's true. It is Elon. I'm not sure I want to buy Elon anyway, We're in a we are not in a pre-war era yet, but we are in a pre-war era, yes. We are slowly heading towards war with Russia, yes. And it's Joe Biden's fault. And it's the MAGA Republicans' fault and Donald Trump's fault for different reasons. Biden, because he was willing to stand up to Russia, but not too much to make him angry. And the Republicans, especially the MAGA Republicans, well, all of them, because it was Trump. And then the MAGA Republicans who fell in line, and then the other Republicans who didn't want to disagree. And they simply side with Putin. They side with America's enemy over America. And that's going to good chance of that causing World War III as well. So, So we're not necessarily going to war, but we're certainly inching towards war. Yes. I mean, Ben Shapiro's kind of an idiot. I mean, he's a very smart idiot, but he's kind of an idiot. I wouldn't really trust him. I think he's a bit of a hack. He's a very smart hack, but he's a bit of a hack. So I just don't particularly trust him. I don't see Ben Shapiro being the kind of guy. Maybe he would be, but I don't see him being the kind of guy who would criticize the Republicans as much as I'll criticize the Democrats. Maybe he would. Aaron says it right. He's smart, but he panders. That's maybe the perfect explanation. That's what I'm saying. He's a brilliant guy, but I don't trust him. Is the best way to put it. He's brilliant, but I don't trust him. I think he's one of those that I think he's got an angle. He's always got an angle. Well, that's a different question, reaching the wrong conclusions, but yeah. Biden's press conference. So Biden does a press conference last night in response to the special counsel BS. So basically, okay, Biden's attorney general appoints a special counsel when they found out that Biden also had classified information at his home. And in order to, make it clear the Biden administration wasn't interfering, they appointed a special counsel, and they even appointed a Trump appointee special counsel so that it was obvious Biden, right, wasn't going to be involved. So the guy comes out yesterday, the special counsel, and he issues a report saying that he's not going to indict Biden. He didn't find any crimes. And he gives sort of two reasons. One, he kind of buries in the report, and he compares it to Trump. And he says, basically, Trump obstructed justice. I mean, I can read you the paragraph. It's very interesting because this is the part, by the way, that nobody heard. Everyone heard the other part that said, I'm not indicting because Biden will go to court and say he's a nice elderly man who can't remember anything anymore. Sounded like he has dementia. And the way it was written was gratuitous. I think he's not incorrect that maybe Biden's lawyer would say, look, he's a nice guy, his memory isn't all there, right? That kind of stuff. They might. The way the guy put it, calling him an elderly man, was disrespectful, and it was intentional, I think. But he did say, and this is a Trump guy, by the way, who wrote this, but he did say, thank you, Sonny, and this got lost in the whole thing. Listen to this. I'm going to read this to you. He wrote in his report, "It is not our role to assess the criminal charges pending against Mr. Trump for his taking the classified information and refusing to return it. But several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's case are clear. Unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden, the allegations set forth in the indictment of Mr. Trump, if proven, would present serious aggravating facts, most notably after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, Trump not only refused to return the documents for many months, but he also obstructed justice, which means Obstructing justice is when you literally try to thwart the investigation. You hide stuff. You destroy evidence, okay? He obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives, and the Department of Justice consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation. So actually, what the guy wrote was great for Biden. He threw in that one line that basically called Biden a senile idiot. It was, I thought, kind of gratuitous. Biden felt the need to go, I'm not sure Biden should have. Biden felt the need to go public and give a talk from the Oval Office in the White House. And he gave his talk. And I think the talk was effective enough. It was effective enough. But, and especially at one part, because what the special counsel did, who's a Trump guy, he threw in, when he was talking about, Biden will present himself as an elderly man with memory problems, he gave examples and he claimed that Biden didn't remember when his son died. Biden's son very famously died of brain cancer, I think in his 40s or something. He was clearly Biden's favorite boy. The one that was going to take over politics and everything, got brain cancer, glioblastoma, that seems to be going around, and died. And it really hurts. I mean, Biden, every time he brings it up, his son dying was huge. The prosecutor brought up Biden's son and claims, Bo is his name, and claims that Biden didn't even know when his son died. Biden brought that up in the White House last night and was mad as hell. He should have stuck with that and ended the thing. Instead, he turned to the White House press corps and said, "Any questions?" And the reporters were lined up screaming. I mean, they looked like a mob, screaming, and they were rude as hell. Rude as hell. His first question, I think he gave to Fox News. I don't know what the hell possessed him to give Fox News the first question, but I think he did a terrible job with the questions. Yeah. I mean, Soba says he lost control of the room. He and his staff lost control of the room. They were acting like animals. And honestly, I don't think he should have taken any questions. I really don't think he should have. Hey, thanks, Tom. Or you take a question from one reporter who is sane. It can be a hard question, but it can be sane. You take that question and that's it. But he sat there for 10 minutes with them going nuts, and that was stupid. I think it was stupid. He should have literally given his statement and gone, "That's it. We're not talking about this again." And honestly, I think too, I wish Biden would get out there and go, "Yeah, I'm old. What's the problem?" You know what I mean? Like, you're acting like this is some, secret. I'm old. Big deal. But I kind of wish he would just say it, And Ronald Reagan made a joke about it, because Reagan was up there as well when he was running against Mondale for president in 1984. And Mondale was much younger than Reagan, Ronald Reagan. And Reagan, at one point, when the age thing came up or whatever, said, I will not use my opponent's youth and inexperience against him. And everybody laughed. It was the funniest damn thing. Yep. We will not hold our youth and experience against you, like Luis just said. It was absolutely hilarious. That's what Biden needs to do. But Biden isn't good at this. As I've said, Biden is not good at communicating. He sucks at it. He's always sucked at it, but he's not good at communicating. And he never has. And he is getting older, which is making him even worse at communicating. But he sucks at this, at the communication side. I mean, when you look at it, and it's true, look at what Biden, I get pissed at what Biden did with Ukraine, because Biden is convinced that we've got to give Russia something, an off-ramp, or Russia will go crazy. And I think we pulled punches, and we didn't give Ukraine what it needed to win the war. Having said that, Biden pulled together. Biden is the one responsible for the international coalition. Europe has done a lot. Thank you, House LePew. Europe has obviously done a ton here, but I think the U.S. was the glue holding it together, especially with Britain not being a part of the EU now. The European Union, had it just been the French and the German at the beginning, had it just been the French and the Germans and America not played a role, I'm not convinced things would have gone as well. Because I think the French and the Germans were a problem. The Germans are now not a problem pretty much. They're still playing games with their Taurus missiles, but they're pretty good. The French still haven't figured out what they want to be when they grow up. You know what I mean? But I think you've seen a lot of the Germans, you've seen them mature in the last 2 years, I think. But Biden did an amazing job pulling that international coalition together and kind of working with it. So the thing is, and this is funny, any complaint I have about Biden as president, none of it has to deal with his age. Biden simply is too afraid of Putin, I think. That's not his age. That's his worldview. You know what I mean? None of it. Those of you who don't like Biden because of Israel and Palestine, that's not because of Biden's age. American presidents support Israel. Biden supports Israel. And we frankly don't think the Arabs are very good allies, to be honest. But my point is, there's a very rational reason why Biden does what he does on policy, even if you don't agree with him. None of it is, he's so old. Thank you, James. If he had a better, right? I mean, you don't say if Biden had a better, thank you again, a very nice wave. I mean, nobody says, oh, if Biden weren't losing his memory, he wouldn't support Israel so much. Of course, that's ridiculous, right? If Biden were losing his memory, he would have given Ukraine the weapons earlier. That's not true. Exactly what Sobu says. They're policy disagreements. I mean, but it's kind of ironic. And this is also the White House and Biden being so bad about this. I mean, he almost should have gotten out there last night and said, everything these guys disagree with me on is about policy. They're not my age. They don't say, well, we would have reached a border deal with Biden, except he's old. No, they reached a border deal. And the Republicans killed it because Donald Trump killed it. That wasn't because Biden was old. But again, Biden sucks at messaging, and the White House, his team sucks just as much. No, it's but this is, remember my message I always put out to you guys anyway. Democrats suck at messaging. Democrats just suck at messaging. And this is just another example of it, No, tired guy said, do you think Democrats will try to put pressure on Biden to step aside? No. It's too late. Also, who are we going to have? Kamala Harris? Do you think that's going to unite people? I mean, it's 2000 all over again. She's not going to unite people, I don't think. I also don't think she'd win, personally. Nice lady. I don't think she'd win. Elizabeth Warren, forget it. Again, I like Elizabeth Warren. There's no way. She's perceived as far too left. Bernie, forget it. Michelle Obama, I'd love it. AOC is never going to be president. Get over it. Michelle Obama would be pretty funny. I love her. That would be pretty funny. Gavin Newsom, none of us know Newsom well enough. Jon Stewart. I mean, I just think it's a little late for that. First of all, they can't do it anyway. They're not running in the primaries. You can't be the nominee. You can't just snap your fingers and be the nominee. You got to win the primary. I mean, Michelle Obama, well, is Michelle Obama qualified? Who knows? Interesting question, actually. Interesting question. But who do I think will win? Honestly, it's 50-50, guys. Trump could win this. We are a very screwed up country. His voters are like a cult. And this Biden stuff isn't helping. I mean, Trump 2 weeks ago confused Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House, the top Democrat in the House of Representatives during the insurrection, when Trump tried to violently overthrow the government. 2 weeks ago, he accused his Republican opponent, Nikki Haley, who's also running for president, of being Nancy Pelosi. Well, when Nikki Haley on January 6th, I offered her troops to defend the Congress, and Nikki Haley refused. And he kept going on about Nikki Haley. And it was like, what? Nobody talked about Trump being crazy. Trump's had lots of these, by the way. Lots of these mistakes by Trump that make him sound like he's nuts. Nobody complains. Trump's speech has been slurred for years now, since he was in the White House. Trump has this weird problem where his speech slurs all of a sudden, and they can't explain it. Nobody's explained it. And they pretend like, and my favorite was the media jumped on and goes, oh, it's clearly dentures. His doctor goes, he doesn't have dentures. There's one famous one I've told you of Trump going, God bless our United States of America. And you're like, God bless our United States of America? Like, are you dying? La, la, la. But nobody asks because it's Trump. We only do this to Democrats. So it's like, okay. But that's not the biggest problem. Let's face it. Trump's problem isn't that he's old and slurs. Trump's problem is that he's a fascist, corrupt. He's corrupt and fascist and sides with America's enemies over America's own troops. I mean, that's Trump's problem, but nonetheless, this is where Democrats suck at messaging. I did a video on TikTok today. The video starts with Biden's old. And then I go, and Trump, and I explained all the things Trump was. And it's like, yeah, I'll take old over a guy who tried to violently overthrow the government. But that's just me. I'm conservative that way. You know? Crazy. Kanye is literally out of his mind. Racist, anti-Semite as well, but he's also just, he's a lunatic, clearly. I mean, he's on his whatever pills for his mind problem and goes off them and goes crazy apparently, but he's not normal. He's not normal. AOC is just way too left for me. I'm not a socialist. She's way too far left for me. Way too far left for me. I mean, you know, she seems like a nice lady. She's super smart. She's good at politics. And I'm not a socialist. It's just, you know, I'm just not. Anyway. Kevin Spacey. You're making me snort. Don't say Kevin Spacey. Yeah, Kevin Spacey. I don't think Kevin Spacey's the guy we want either. Katie Porter. Yep, she got his ninth. Blinken. I don't know. Oh, that's funny. Harry's been debating MAGA supporters? No, I love Harry Sisson. Harry Sisson is like this. Is he 20, I think? This 20-year-old Democrat who's on TikTok and Twitter and everything else. He's very good. But he debates MAGA supporters. I've not seen that. That's wild. I love Buttigieg. Buttigieg probably needs a little more experience, but he's great. And he's got that Gavin Newsom way of explaining things that's so smart. Thank you, Suzanne. And I would say so nice. Like Pete explains things and he comes across as like a nice Christian boy, which, by the way, in America, that works. It works in a big way. Oops. What you doing, dog? You know, it works in a big way. Anyway, I think we're going to close up shop in a minute here. Oh, that's funny. I have to look because I look at Harry's stuff just when it crosses my screen. We follow each other on Twitter and stuff. I like him a lot, but I just sort of see it when it comes up. You know what I mean? You know, Twitter or even TikTok. Like it stuff doesn't come up like it's kind of random. I think. Actually, very much like Facebook too. I kind of just stuff on Facebook comes up when Matthew McConaughey when it comes up. You know, Matthew McConaughey. Look for oh, that's interesting on live. Yeah, I'd be interested to see him on live, see how he is. Anyway, I like him a lot. He's very good. And I mean, my God, it's 20. I'm like, God, you know, amazing. Anyway, John Mersheimer. I've heard that name before. I forget who he is. I want to say something bad though, as I recall. No, isn't he somebody bad, or am I mixing it up? I think he's bad. Oh, I'm recognizing that face. Already getting worse. Sasha, stop. Oh. Yeah, I don't know enough about him. Like I said, I vaguely remember him being controversial, but don't know enough about him. But I want to remember that he was interesting and then went a little nuts, I'm thinking, but I'd have to... Quincy Institute. Oh, he's at the Quincy Institute. He's a nut job. Okay, that's fine. No, he's at Quincy. There's not even he's crazy. Yeah. No. I mean, the thing is, you can tell certain people, like anybody who works at the Quincy Institute is crazy. There's not even a discussion there. I mean, they are like pro-Putin activists, basically. They're nuts. I mean, they're nuts. Any case. All right. Samantha Power, she seems very capable. I mean, very smart, very strong. I don't know much about her other than I've always been very impressed when I've seen her. She's a very strong, smart woman. You know, and Newsom's an incredible speaker. I got to know more about him, but he's incredible whenever I've seen him debate or speak. Explains things very well, which is nice. You know. RFK's got whatever voice issue, I think is why. I think he's got the same voice issue that What's-Her-Face, Susan Collins has, I think. who's a senator from Maine. I think so. But it's a health condition is why his voice vibrates. Hers vibrates too. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. Any case. All right, let's go, guys. All right. Gretchen Whitmer, she's okay. People like her a lot. I'm not opposed, but, I need to learn more about her. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to yawn here. La, la, la. But it's a vocal cord issue. I'm saying it's a health issue with the vocal cords. Exactly. So, all right, guys, let's call it quits. All right, thank you guys for joining tonight. Thank you, mods. What is it, 7:30 already? Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, for the monthly subscribers on TikTok and YouTube, you know who you are. Feel free to sign up if you like. We'll be on Discord and on TikTok. Vlad will be joining us. I checked in. So he should be joining us tomorrow. Juice. He was on vacation last week, but he's around today. So that should be interesting to sort of talk to him about the change in the defense secretary, I should say. Top general, I should say, not even defense secretary. Top general and all of that, so it should be interesting. And just, again, get the sense of where the war is heading. So, all right, guys. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday. All right? Thank you for joining us. I know I need, theme music, but I don't think we're allowed any of that. No, TikTok would be okay with it. YouTube would freak out. So, TikTok, I could have theme music. YouTube would be like, it's a violation. Anyway. All right, guys. Palestinians, you get to go to another podcast if you want to hear about the Palestinians. This is called Ukraine War Update. Which kind of gives you a hint what the topic is about. All right. Talk to you guys later. Thank you. Have a good night.